Yo, comrades, what's up? Sorry. Goodness. All right, so it's time for me to finally enjoy something I haven't seen in a while. 2 weeks ago, we covered all the original anime series, TV series of Evangelion, along with End of Evangelion, the movie that kind of gave it its a more like a more proper ending, I guess. I think. Anyway, so then all these years later, the original guy who produced the show decided he was going to remake or remaster or something the whole thing into 3 movies, which turned into 4 movies. I don't know that much about the production. If you can go ahead and look it up on YouTube or whatever, I'm sure you'll find people going into extensive detail about it. That's not what I do. I'm just going to tell the story. So if you watch my video from 2 weeks ago, you're going to notice that there's not a lot of changes, at least in this first movie. This is Evangelion 1.11. You are not alone. So the one big thing is that I'm going to go through it pretty quick, and it's not just because I've already talked about this whole thing at length, and the story really isn't that much different, but the movie goes through it real quick. So the movie's about an hour and a half or so, and it covers like the first I don't know, it covers quite a bit. I don't know where the episodes is, like maybe the first 10 episodes. It covers a decent amount. So let's go ahead and get started. So Evangelion is a story about a young boy named Shinji who shows up in some place and he's trying to call somebody, and there's like some sort of emergency or whatever. We then see this woman who's running late. This is Masato. And she's like, oh, God, why do I got to do this stupid bullshit? And then we go to like a headquarters of some sort, like some command center, and there's all these old men, and they're firing and shooting at what? A giant monster. Oh, no. And they call it an angel. In fact, they call it the fourth angel, which is the first thing that I noticed that was different from the anime series. Because in the anime series, this angel is the third angel, because there were 2 other incidents before. There was first, second impact, and they're trying to avoid third impact. They don't really get into the impact so much. I think in the first movie, they reference the second impact like once that I recall. Anyway, what's important is that Shinji is here to see his father. He's told by his teacher that he needs to go help his father, and that his father is going to save the whole world, save Japan, save whatever. And Masato is delivering him to NERV, which is the organization that his father works for that does all this stuff. So they head over there. We get the UN, who's trying to stop this angel. They're completely unable to do anything about it. And then finally, they're like, all right, Akari, who is Shinji's dad, go ahead and take care of this for us. And he's like, awesome, sounds good. At this point, Masato and Shinji have made their way into NERV headquarters. And she gets lost, but eventually she ends up where she needs to be. We see this woman, this blonde lady who's Ritsuko, and we find out she's the head of research and development. She's doing something with what we soon to see is the Evangelions, which is this giant mechanoid machine thing, right? So then Shinji gets brought up, and they're like, hey, this is the Evangelion. And then his dad shows up, and he's like, what up, son? And Shinji's like, father. And then everyone's like, all right, man, you're going to get in this thing, and you're going to go kill that angel. And Shinji's like, go fuck yourselves. And then his dad's like, bring out Rei. And Shinji's like, the fuck is Rei? And Rei is this pretty short-haired blue-haired girl who comes out, and she's wearing like a plug-in suit, like this thing, so you can plug into the Evangelion easier. They don't really seem necessary because Shinji oftentimes will pilot the Evangelion with just like his street clothes, but whatever. Anyway, she comes out, she's on a gurney, and she's all bandaged up because something terrible happened. And she the place gets rocked because the angel is now above NERV trying to break down into it. And Rei falls off her gurney and is like barely able she's like weak and like trying to pull herself up, and Shinji does he pulls a man move, and he's like, all right, fine, I'll fucking pilot this thing. Like, this is crazy, you're not gonna make this like handicapped woman like do this thing. So he gets in there and he syncs up like perfectly, and everyone's super excited. They send him up, and they're like, all right, Shinji, just walk. And so he starts like walking barely, and then he falls over, and then the angel comes up and picks him up and like breaks his arm and blasts him and throws him against this thing, and then they're like, oh fuck, we're dead. And then Shinji, and then the Evangelion goes berserk. It just like takes complete control of itself. It like screams like a monster, and it charges the angel, and it beats the shit out of it, and the angel like blasts it off, and then it comes back, and then it's starting to massacre. It like breaks off these bones, and it's like cracking this thing's core, and then the angel wraps up around Eva Unit 1 and blows up. And then everyone's like, holy shit. And then we see Eva Unit 1 just like walking out of the thing, and then it like collapses, and everyone's like, huh. So Shinji's in the hospital, and he's staring up at the ceiling, and he's like, I've never seen this ceiling before. So then we get some more information. So one of the new things about, if you watch my other video of seeing the anime series and never seen these movies, is that in the previous show, Misato is a captain who then promotes to a major. Here she is like a lieutenant colonel to start off with, which makes much more sense of why she'd be in charge of this whole thing. So apparently at some point in between these series, someone like who was in the military was like, that doesn't make no sense. And the guy who made this was like, yeah, that don't make no sense. The other thing we learn about, and so kind of the key difference between this and the show is the show like kind of like really lets things breathe and you have a lot of time to kind of sit with things. This is like bam, 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 bam. So instead of like waiting till like the very end of the series, the show kind of assumes that you've seen the series and you kind of know what's up. And so we get a lot more reveals. Like we get a whole thing where Shinji is like thinking about Rei, and he's like, Rei Ananami, that's my dad's last name. And then we get this like kind of flashback where it's like Gendo Akari, who's Shinji's dad, is with his wife, Yui. Like we don't see them, but we like hear them talking, and she's like, oh, I'm pregnant. If it's a boy, we'll call him Shinji. If it's a girl, we'll call him Rei. And then Gendo's like, oh, that sounds good. And then she's like, Shinji Ayami and Rei Akari, because her last name's Akari. And then she's like, no, let's do Shinji Akari and Rei Ayanami. And so it's like, are they brother and sister? Like, what's the mystery? Because again, this is like kind of, it's a remake, but also like a reimagining. It's like those Final Fantasy VII games they're making, right? Where things are different. Anyway, so Shinji's thinking about that. He's like, that's weird. That's my dad's last name. So from there, then we also find out that the angels come from the Tree of Life and humans come from the Tree of Knowledge, which is something Gendo and like the old white-haired guy who's like his sidekick, like, mentioned kind of passively. We get a lot more about like, hey, there's like so many angels, we have to kill this many angels, some of it before like the end, or to end something. And then the other kind of thing we get is when the council's meeting with Akari, or they're talking about stuff, they're talking about like, everything's gone according to plan. We learn that part of the plan is to get Shinji and Rei to get close for like some unknown reason. And yes, so that's that. We learned pretty early on also that Misato was living with another man like 8 years ago, because Shinji gets put in like a solo apartment by himself, and Misato's like, absolutely not. He's going to come stay with me. So he does. And then we get like almost like an exact retelling. So he comes in, she's a slob, they eat garbage. She's like super fun and rambunctious, but it's like a persona she's putting on, and she thinks Shinji's kind of figured it out. Shinji like reveals himself to her by accident because he goes to take a shower and there's a penguin there, and he's like, oh my gosh. And she's like, that's Pen Pen. And he comes out and he's got like his little dick hanging out, and Misato's like, you might want to cover up. And then she like thanks him and says everything's going to be great. The next day at school, he gets punched by Kaji because his sister got injured in the last battle. And then Shinji's like, I have no friends. Misato was wrong. No one's grateful that I was doing this whatsoever. We then get to like the next angel attack pretty quick, which is angel number 5. And this is the one with the tentacles. And one of the things about everything in this is everything looks better. And character-wise, the characters stay somewhat the same. I would say Shinji is less of a little whiny bitch. Now, he's still a little whiny bitch, but not as much as he was in the show. And the Misato, it seems a little more hard-edged, but I think it's because she always was that way, and that the idea was that she was supposed to put on this like light-hearted persona in the show, but it didn't really come across that well, because this show kind of like emphasizes like, no, she's more hard-edged here, maybe because she's a lieutenant colonel, she's had more life experience or whatever. But anyway. So then Shinji's got to fight this thing, and he goes up and he blasts it with this awesome looking Gatling gun that he didn't have in the first one. And then he gets like smacked around a bit and tossed into this hill. Meanwhile, Kaji and the nerd friend are like, they climb up and they escape out of like the shelter, and they go up to like they want to see what the actual battle's like. But they end up like, Shinji almost kills them with the Evangelion. It almost lands on them. And then the angel comes over and Shinji has to grab it, and he's holding it. And then the boys got to like get in the plug where Shinji sits with him so they don't die. And then like his electricity gets cut off, and they're like, all right, it's time to retreat. And Shinji's like, hell no, I'm not going to run away anymore, which is badass. And he pulls out this like vibro dagger that he has, and he tosses the angel, runs at it, gets stabbed a couple times, and just like slams itself to the core to destroy the core. And we find out very specifically, because the TV show never like emphasized this, even though it was pretty obvious that there's these cores that need to be destroyed. It used like video game logic, where it's like, you play enough video games, you know how this works. With this, they have a whole like scene where Shinji's in training, and they're like, you got to kill the core. The core is what the angel runs on. If you can destroy the core, then it's going to stop the angel. This is what you got to do. And so it's very heavily emphasized. Then, so he wins. His friends like apologize. Shinji hits him. Now they're buddies again. Shinji goes on this like long train ride where the whole time he's being followed by these guys, right? And then he comes back, and Misato's like, you happy now? And he's like, I'm never happy. She's like, what are you going to do? He's like, I'm going to pilot this because that's what everyone needs me to do. And she's like, you should pilot for yourself, not for other people. And he's like, okay, yeah, whatever. Then we get a scene where Misato's like, oh, hey, here's the new, we see Misato and Ritsuko out drinking, and they complain about how there's not any men, there's no good men left, something. And then Ritsuko gives Misato these new ID cards for Rei and Shinji. So then Shinji, at that point we get like a flashback. So we find out how Rei hurt herself. She was doing the test pilot for prototype for Evangelion Unit 0 when the thing lost control and it started trying to bash and kill Gendo Ikari. Essentially, it was trying to bash through this thing where they were watching, and eventually they ejected her plug and it got all fucked up, and then all this like umbilical fluid or whatever. I call it like I can't remember what they call it. Because I didn't name it in the movie, and it's been a minute. But anyway, this like fluid's like everywhere, and then Gendo runs down, just like in the TV show, and like opens the things and burns his hands, and breaks his glasses, and he's like, Rei, and it's like, yay. And then when Shinji goes to deliver the card for Rei, there's a whole awkward scene where he like walks into her apartment because she's in the shower, and then he sees his dad's glasses. He's like, what the heck? And then he sees her naked, and his hands are on her boobs, and then she doesn't give a fuck because she's like a clone. And then and he's like, then he like follows her, gives her the card, and then she's like, you need to be nicer to your dad, and he's like, fuck my dad, and then she slaps him. And then he's in his Evangelion watching her go. They're gonna activate Prototype 0 again to practice with it, make sure hopefully it doesn't go berserk again. And she's talking to his dad, and they're all chummy and happy, and he's like, wish my dad would smile for me. Wah, wah, wah. Anyway, the next Evangelion comes, and it's the big cube that like drills down, and again, the animations, the kind of transformation stuff, it's much higher quality. But it shows up, Shinji goes up to fight it, and immediately gets zapped. And then they put up like a wall to protect him, and then the thing does this like giant blast, and they're gonna like bring it back down, but they can't because it's stuck, and then they're gonna eject Shinji, and his dad's like, absolutely fucking not. And Lieutenant Colonel Masato is like, why not? And it's like, because he's in there's an AT field which is protecting him. And these AT fields are like the angels produce them, the Evangelions produce them, and they gotta like neutralize each other or whatever. But because they're far enough away, Shinji like survives. So he goes to the hospital and he's like, fuck, I'm here again. And then they're gonna activate Rei. They're gonna get Shinji to go back in and do like a long distance attack with this like sniper rifle they got from like the Japanese security division or whatever. This time it's not Rei who goes and gets it. It's like they go get it with helicopters. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Yeah. So, but instead of Shinji going along with Rei, because he wakes up, he's okay. Rei's like, we gotta go. We have this operation. In the show, Shinji like goes. In this one, he's like, no, I'm not gonna fucking go. So Masato has to come get him. And we get this like cute scene where she's being very like motherly to him. Like she takes his hand and like leads him to like this thing because she wants to show him something. We also get the scene way earlier on where Mama Masato is like takes him to like see the sunset over Tokyo 3 and like all the buildings come up, and she's like, this is what we're fighting for and all this stuff. It's real good. But other than that, they're doing the same thing. They got the photon sniper rifle thing, and they're gonna shut down all the power in Tokyo or in all of Japan so they can fire this fucking thing off. So where's Masato taking Shinji? Bam, all the way down to what is it called? Something Dogma. All right, sure. This is where Lilith is being held, right? Lilith. So Shinji immediately, while fighting Angel 4, 5, it's number 6. Pops in and sees Lilith, and then Masato explains the whole thing about the second impact, because while they're taking the elevator down to get down here, she's like, oh, you know about second impact, blah, 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 blah. She's like, yeah, I've heard about it in school. And she's like, but that's not the truth. The truth is we found this, and they, bam, that's Angel number 2, Lilith. It's the thing that the Evangelions are based on, and Shinji even identifies, like, is that an Evangelion? And she's like, no, but it's the thing the Evangelions are based on, and this is what the Angels are trying to get to. And if they get here, if they get to like a certain part of the space, we're going to self-destruct this whole fucking thing, because like under no circumstance are they allowed to get down to like this phase to get to Lilith. And that if they get down here, if we die, it's the destruction of all mankind. So like you're not just fighting for yourself, you're fighting for all of humanity. And so if you want to do that, that'd be great. And he's like, all right, fine. And then later on, we have like the scene with him and Rei getting the orders, just like in the anime. And then we get the shot of them getting ready. Only we see naked Rei, which is awesome. And then she's like, I do this because something, and farewell, Shinji. And it's like, don't, so at the end, he can be like, don't ever say farewell and whatnot. Anyway, so they get ready. And then at some point, Shinji and Masato were just standing there after the orders. And she's like, hey, this came from the Central Intelligence guys. They got these recording, and the recording is Kaji and Toha, the nerd guy, being like, "Hey Shinji, we believe in you. Do your best, man. Save everybody." And it's super happy about it, and it helps him like be strong. And this battle with the Sixth Angel is way fucking better. Like the other two battles are pretty much straight out of the anime show, but this one's so much better. And it's interesting because they had a Nikkei boss. So there's a collab with Evangelion, right, based on the movies, which kind of inspired me to make this whole series, to be completely honest. So they had the boss, the main boss for the first collab was this thing, and it was like changing shape and doing all this crazy stuff. And I thought the Nikkei just like did that to make it more interesting. I'm like, oh no, this thing's like super, like way more cool. It does all sorts of shapes and attacks and stuff. Like this whole battle's like way fucking cooler. They do the same thing where they take all the power in Japan, and Shinji's the sniper rifle guy, and excuse me, and Rei's gonna defend him and keep him alive. And so they blast, and it looks like the thing hits dead on, but it doesn't, and then it blasts back. And instead of Rei stopping that blast so they can recharge, it fucking hits Shinji in that whole area and like blasts the shit out of him. But thank goodness the power charging stations are still good to go. There wasn't that many deaths, and the photon rifle is still good to go. So then Shinji's like laying there, and they're like, Shinji, and he's like, oh fuck, like he's like breathing real heavy. It's really good. It's so fucking good and well animated and everything. And you know, even when he's taking that first shot, he's like breathing real heavy. He's like, I'm so scared. I can't like just put a fear away like Rei can, like Ayanami, because they're Japanese, so they use last names, right? Ayanami-chan. And but then he's like sitting there, and then he starts like he remembers the voicemails from his friends, and that the power of the fucking friendship is magic. So he pulls himself up, and because at first his dad's like, get Unit 0 on there, she's gonna do this, and then Masato's like, no sir, your son's got it, just let him do it, just trust him. And he's like, all right, I'll allow it. So this whole scene is like way more intense and like way more stuff going on. It's so good. So this is like, to me, it's like, oh yeah, I see, like doing this like this is like way better. Well, a lot of the rest of this stuff is just kind of like, oh, we got like hints and pieces of like other things. But starting with like the hospital scene going after that, it's like, wow, this was all so much good fucking stuff. So anyway, so he crawls back, and he's gonna retake that second shot, and then the Angel's like, fuck you, and blasts again, but this time Rei's got there with her shield, and she can hold it for like 20 seconds, and there's like, it's very tense and intense with like Shinji trying to like aim, and he's like, ah, and it's like, and then right before like the 20-second countdown, he clicks it, clicks in, and then he fires, and it goes boom, and it shatters the fucking core of the Angel, and it dies, and everyone's like, woo, yay, we did it. But then Rei's like all fucked up, so then Shinji runs over with Eva Unit 1 and like drags out her like the little pod that they sit in, and then he runs down just like his dad did earlier in the episode, right? The whole poeticness of it, and like cracks open the side door so that and then gets in there, and she's like alive, and she's like, Kari, and he's like Rei, and he's like crying, and she's like, I don't know what to do in this situation. And he's like, just smile, you dumb motherfucker. And she's like, okay. And so that's excellent all across the board. Yeah, okay. So then, we like the screen or the camera like pans up to the moon, and then we're like on the moon, and there's all these caskets, and we see Kuro. If you don't know who Kuro is the 16th Angel. He was in like one episode. He was like pretty much in like the last episode of Evangelion, the anime series, before the movies, and before their like love fest in episodes 25 and 26. And him and Shinji were like super best friends forever. And but he was an angel, right? And so he gets up, and then we see this like black monolith, and it kind of looks like it's one of the Sealy monoliths. That's like the council, and it's talking about like, oh, we're getting, and then Kuro's like, I see Shinji, or I see the boy, or I see number 3. I think he said number 3. I see number 3 is like awakened, or is starting to awaken. And they're like, yes, something. The plan is going exactly as planned. Like the book of something has now been read and opened, and the unification or the combination or something is going to commence at some point. And Kuro's like, good. And that wraps up the movie. So fucking great. I'm glad I waited till all 4 of these came out. If I'd seen this when it first came out, which I had the opportunity to, I'd been pissed, because I'm like, oh man, I gotta wait like 3 years for this fucking thing. So I think this came out in 2019 or 2020, and then the second one came out in like 2022, and then 23, and then 24, if I'm recalling correctly. Anyway, excellent, highly recommended if you like Evangelion. I was reading a lot of that stuff, and I'm glad I did. I like the original series. To watch that first, And I would say yes, it helps like you be less confused about a lot of stuff that's going on, or kind of makes things like, oh, okay, I kind of know what's going on here. Like, oh, this is interesting. They change things this way. But honestly, if you just watch this, like, it's fucking fantastic. You'd be good to go. But yeah, so there you go. That's Evangelion. You Are Not Alone 1.11. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.